Good morning, Central Valley. I'm your host, Craig Barton, and welcome to the Real Estate Radio Network, the most important hour of radio every week here on News Talk 580 KMJ. The Real Estate Radio Network is a show dedicated to bringing you some rational thought to the crazy world that we live in and helping you to rebuild Central Valley's housing and credit markets. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted advice. And that is exactly what you will hear each and every week right here on News Talk 580 KMJ. Thanks for joining us. If you have any real estate-related questions or questions regarding the information that we share with you today on the show, please don't hesitate to call us at 800-979-3958. Or you can also check out our resources online at www.reofresnohomes.com. That's www.reofresnohomes.com. We would really love to hear from you. Today, again in the studio with me, Michelle Pettis-Cavalli, a trusted real estate professional. Michelle?
Good morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Craig.
Good morning. Good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Today, we are going to take a look at a topic that makes the world go round and has also taken a real beating over the last, I would say, 6 years here in the Central Valley, as well as all over the world, and that is credit. Most everyone has credit. If they don't have it, they want to establish it. They want to have good credit, but unfortunately, sometimes good things or bad things happen to good people. And your credit, unfortunately, takes a beating. Today's show is dedicated to giving you some solid information about your credit. And if there's anything, hopefully we'll give you some helpful hints if your credit has taken a beating on what we can do to rebuild that. You may or may not know how you got here, but if understanding and rebuilding your credit is important to you, you will not want to miss today's show. So make sure that you stay tuned. First, this morning, let's take a look at in the news. The Republican race for the White House, Newt Gingrich won the South Carolina Republican primary last week. The winner of the South Republican, interesting note, Michelle, the winner of the South Carolina primary has gone on to win the nomination in each Republican primary since the contest's inception in 1980.
Wow.
That is,
That's a trend.
I didn't know
setting
that.
A trend.
I didn't know that, but if there is, I guess, a predictor that predicts the results as we should expect to see it. The results of the South Carolina, or the results in South Carolina, only raise the stakes for the battle in Florida, a traditionally expensive contest that I would imagine that Mitt is quite able to pay for.
Have you been watching?
I have been watching. Last night's last night's debate that I saw was extremely interesting. Voting is closed in Florida to only registered Republicans, and the winner is awarded all of the delegates. So it is an all or nothing state. To be sure, this race is far from over. There's an interesting side note, though. There was a comment that was made, speaking of when you talk about debate, there was a comment made in one of the recent debates leading up to the South Carolina primary that if someone, and this was, I don't recall if it was made by, I think it was, oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. Who's the guy, brown hair, stands to the left of Romney? Rick Santorum.
Oh,
there we go.
Like,
oh my gosh.
Okay, gotcha.
So Rick Santorum made the comment, and I think it's kind of valid. He said, if someone has something in their closet that would handicap them in a run for the White House, please, let's hear about it now and not after the convention.
Wow.
Give our party the best chance of winning the White House.
You know what? I think that's interesting because the issue continues to be the Republican Party comes across as fractured in so many directions with all of these candidates. Nobody's 100% behind any one of them, and so every different state is spliced in different ways, and we end up with a unstable. The Republican Party ends up with an unstable candidate because of it.
Right. Here, Mitt gets criticized for his $40 million that he claimed on his tax returns, $3 million that he paid in taxes, roughly another $3 million that he donated. Newt gets criticized by Mitt for what Mitt calls to be, didn't you do some lobbying over the last so many
Right.
years. You worked for Freddie Mac.
Let's
You were,
pick them all apart.
yeah, you were paid what Newt says, roughly $35,000 per year is what he saw. The other entities that he works with received more, $1.6 million,
Right.
from that was the term or the number that was bandied about last night. But very, very interesting. I tell you what, I do agree with the statement, though. If there is something that you have,
absolutely,
I would suggest you tell us now.
Bring it up now or bail out now.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you do it later, all it's going to do is, and that could be whether, if the shoes were turned and this was the Democratic Party.
It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. It's the same thing. Do we really want the drama later that's going to affect the party?
Sure.
Whichever one you're in a negative manner, this is about the country, not the individual.
I totally agree. Totally agree. In a science-related note, the sun has been bombarding the Earth with radiation from the biggest solar storm in more than 6 years, with more to come from the fast-moving eruption. The solar flare occurred about 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it will hit the Earth with 3 different effects at 3 different times this past Sunday. The biggest issue is radiation. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Space Weather Prediction Center in Colorado, say that fast 3 times, the radiation is mostly a concern for satellite disruptions and astronauts in space. It can cause communication problems for polar traveling airplanes, said space weather scientist physicist Doug Bissiker. Radiation from Sunday's flare arrived at the Earth an hour later and continued through this past Wednesday.
And all I want to know is, am I still a Capricorn?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even want to go there. And in some sad news, unfortunately, Joe Paterno, the iconic former Penn State football coach, whose legend was tarnished when he was fired in the aftermath of the Jerry Sandusky scandal, has died. His family confirmed this past Sunday. He was 85. Doctors had said that Paterno's condition had become serious in recent days after he experienced complications from lung cancer. The winningest major college football coach of all time, with 409 victories, 2 national titles. Paterno was diagnosed shortly after Penn State's Board of Trustees ousted him November 9th, following the child sex abuse charges against Sandusky, his former assistant. The firing marked the stunning end of Paterno's 61-year career at Penn State, 46 of them as a head coach. Critics charged that Paterno, when told years ago of the Sandusky allegations, did not take appropriate action. Paterno had been getting treatment since his cancer diagnosis. And unfortunately, I think it was a Washington Post interview, they played some excerpts, and they interviewed the reporter that actually interviewed him, and he did, from her account, looked extremely frail and extremely tired. So,
wow, it's very sad news.
Extremely sad. Extremely sad. We were just talking before we came on the air that just the way he went out was. Everyone has an opinion in terms of how it should have been handled, but unfortunately, how he went out was just not the way to end a career. I think it could have been done differently to spare everyone a whole lot of pain.
Well, 60+ years, and that's what we're going to remember if we're not careful, and that's
certainly
concerning.
Certainly. Next, let's take a look back into the sports world. This last weekend around the NFL and the NFL playoffs. In the AFC Championship game, in the early game, the Baltimore Ravens, what a game. The New England Patriots, I think Tom Brady's comment was, I really sucked, or I really stunk it up.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, that is exactly what he said after the game.
Wow.
Yeah, he was not a big fan of his performance. Eked it out. The Ravens' Billy Cundiff missed a 32-yard field goal with 11 seconds remaining in Foxborough, Massachusetts, with the opportunity to tie it up. The Patriots looked sharp. I tell you what, there were 2 opportunities the Ravens had at the very end. There was what looked to be a touchdown pass, went right through the hands of their receiver. Then Billy Cundiff comes out to kick this 32-yard field goal and misses it.
Wow. I missed the game. I didn't get to watch that game. So.
Heartbreaker.
Wow.
Now, in the game that so many people
well, we are sitting in California.
We are sitting in California. Very true. So many people had an amazing interest in it. It was all over Facebook. There were a lot of fans that were really peeved.
Yeah.
After this game, trade Williams to he was the young kid on the punt return. The ball bounced off his knee. Trade him to the Giants. Kill him. Death threats. There were reports of death threats.
I believe it. People had money on that game.
New York Giants eked out a squeaker at Candlestick, 2017. The Giants and the 49ers went into sudden death overtime with Lawrence Tynes, where Lawrence Tynes kicked the game-winning 31-yard field goal. The Giants will play the New England Patriots on Super Bowl Sunday, February 5th. Super Bowl 46.
I was actually in a public location when that game ended.
Yeah.
And I was with a gentleman who was a fan of the Giants, and let me tell you, I think he was the only person cheering in all place.
That was rooting the Giants on Sunday.
It was I felt
where you were at. Well,
yeah,
wow.
It was wow.
Wow. Amazing. So good reason for folks to get together on February 5th.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. On today's show, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about something that might be a sore subject for a lot of folks. And I tell you what, depending upon where you've been, how things have happened over the last what has happened to you over the last 5 or 6 years, this may be a sore subject. This may be something that you do not want to talk about. Human nature is, for many people, let's just stick our head in the sand and let's just hope that it gets better. The farther we get away from it, the easier it is to deal with. Well, we are going to talk about credit. And the extension of credit in our country is what makes the world go round. In the early days, credit was just a handshake. It was an agreement between two individuals. You know, I'll let you do this, and I'll give you this, or money, or what have you. Then went to a contract, handshake contract, and here we are today. However, in the past 6 years, our credit really, truly has taken a beating all around our great country. And whether your credit's good, whether your credit's not so perfect, whether your credit is on life support or just plain trash, we want to help to give you some sound advice on what you need to do in order to improve your credit. Take notes. If you've got questions, please, again, don't hesitate to give us a call, 800-979-3958.
And, Craig, just out of curiosity, because I know you've experienced this a lot longer than I have, when you say good credit, not so perfect credit, trash credit, marry up, what exactly? I mean,
I really don't know where you were going with that.
I'm sorry. But I guess the question I have, because most consumers that come to work with us don't really have a clue what those numbers, where the bottom is, where the top is, where they lie within. If there are 600, 700, is that good, that bad? I mean, maybe you, just as an overview, what are those numbers?
A little bit later, we're going to get into the particulars as far as exactly what those numbers mean, what the range that you will typically see from low to high. But I think the most important thing is that we need to determine exactly, or you need to determine exactly where you are at, our listeners. And this is definitely not the time that bad news gets better. It really isn't. Let's deal with it together. And most importantly, let's establish a comprehensive plan. And let's put you back in the driver's seat. So let's take a look at real quickly, what is a credit score? A credit score in the United States is a number that represents the creditworthiness of an individual. It represents the likelihood that a person will pay his or her debts. Now, lenders like banks, credit unions, and credit card companies use these scores to evaluate the potential risk posed by lending consumers money. The best known and most widely used credit score model in the United States is FICO, and FICO score is calculated statistically with the information that is derived from a consumer's credit files, and the letters FICO stand for Fair Isaac Corporation. Let's take it a step further. Information that's reported, there are 3 major credit repositories or credit reporting bureaus or agencies. You can use any of those terms: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Creditors, Macy's, Finance and Thrift, Citibank, Bank of America, they report to these credit repositories. Special note, not every creditor reports to every repository.
So how do you handle that if you have credit on your credit report, but it's not, or you have credit, but it's not showing on your credit report?
Well,
is there a way to handle that?
It depends. Number one, if it's reporting to one bureau, that's all you're going to get.
Okay.
And it really depends. Some finance companies may only report to one bureau. That is a question specifically. We utilize a company called Credit Technologies, and Credit Technologies has probably been one of the best credit reporting companies that we buy information from. In that particular instance, if you say, hey, this is only reporting to TransUnion, to them, they will find out if there is a way to get it to report to Experian and Equifax.
Oh, okay.
They'll find out for you. All scoring models, and this gets back to your question that you
this is my question.
This is your question. The scoring models that FICO creates are built to generate scores between a range of 300 and 850.
Okay, so 850 is the highest.
850 is the highest.
850 is the highest. Okay.
850 is the highest, and it's important to note that not all scoring models are created equal, and this is something that we'll get into a little greater. But the difference between a consumer credit report, a mortgage credit report, a rental credit report, or an insurance credit report most definitely utilizes different scoring models.
Okay.
So just one quick comment there. I have a consumer that comes to us and says, need to pull my credit report, want to get pre-approved for a mortgage to buy a home. We pull a 3-bureau mortgage credit report, and they say, well, why are my scores different? Because I just pulled a free annual credit report, or I got something from Equifax, or I went online and I paid $15 to some online company.
Yeah, because they'll come and they'll say I have a 9 blah blah blah, and I'm going, hold on, time out.
Yeah, mortgage credit report totally different than a consumer credit report.
Okay.
That's one of the most common misconceptions is the mortgage credit report. If you're looking to buy a house, that's the one we want to use. Just like in auto financing, certain auto providers or certain finance providers within auto companies or car dealerships may only pull TransUnion.
Gotcha.
And it's a TransUnion consumer credit report.
Gotcha.
It's not a mortgage credit report.
Okay.
So when is your credit file accessed? It's not just applying for a loan. You may have your credit pulled when you're wanting to rent an apartment or a home, when you're buying a home. One thing really important to note, your middle credit score can affect the rate that you pay on a loan, believe it or not. Conventional financing, the lower the rate, the higher the loan to value. In other words, the higher the loan versus the value of the property, typically the higher the rate. Because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two what we call GSEs, or government-sponsored entities, that are under conservatorship, that they're talking about trying to get rid of.
In the news every day.
In the news, yeah, quite often right at the moment. Yeah. Just because they just recently asked for a bunch more money. Your money, taxpayer money.
Of course.
Rates are all over the board. If you have a much lower credit score, middle credit score of all 3 credit scores, and just to note, they use the middle of 3 credit scores when it comes time for qualifying for a mortgage. The lower that score is, and the higher the loan-to-value goes, the higher the rate. The higher the credit score, the higher the loan-to-value. It's typically a little lower rate. So bottom line is, yes, it does fluctuate. Now, let's talk about with FHA, USDA, and VA financing. FHA, Federal Housing Administration, it's a government loan. USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and VA, Veterans Administration, those typically any score in excess of 640, your rate's the same. Okay. Not a whole lot of a differentiation there. For employment, if you apply for a job and you're looking to get a job within a certain California state agency, it could be anyone. It may be, and it's important to check, it may be a condition of your employment. An employer's thought process is that an employee with more debt and a derogatory credit past will be more likely to commit fraud or embezzle money.
Interesting.
Also, insurance. Insurance companies have been pulling credit for decades because studies have for a long time found that as a definite correlation between a homeowner's negative credit rating and their likelihood of filing a claim. I thought that was fascinating. Also, some state licensing, and these are just examples, folks. The new National Mortgage Licensing System does require a check. It's state-specific, but in some states, if you are trying to become a mortgage originator and your credit scores don't pass muster, you may not get a National Mortgage Licensing System license because your credit scores are too low. Interesting, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk real. This is, I think, really important. Let's talk about the makeup of FICO scores. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the percentage, if 100% is 100% of what variables are looked at when it comes time for calculating your total composite score. 35.
Are you talking about the pie?
I'm talking about the pie. Okay. This is where we're dicing up the pie. What percentage goes to what?
Pie of my credit report.
Exactly. Okay. 35% goes towards, or 35% of your scores are based upon payment history. Now, let's talk about payment history. You may have a late payment that's, your payment's due on the 1st. It is not contractually delinquent and won't typically report as a 30-day late until you are in excess of 30 days delinquent. Extremely important to note. Paying your bills on time means paying them within the grace period, and most definitely less than, nothing later than 30 days.
Okay, so let's do it for instance. Someone pays something late 6 months ago. Now, how's that affecting them?
Well,
6 months later.
Late in excess of 30 days? Mm-hmm. Okay. It will have an immediate effect on the credit score at the time that it happens. Okay. But keep in mind, it is a composite of all of these different variables that we're getting ready to discuss. Mm-hmm. A 30-day mortgage late will account for 35% of your total score.
Wow.
Now, the farther you get away from that late, it's like the analogy that I always give. I cut my finger. Over time, it heals. The farther I get away from that, your credit report begins to heal. So the farther you get away from any type of delinquency, the better. Okay, the farther it is in the past. Okay. Now, number 2, and these are in order of percentage: 35% payment history, 30% credit utilization. You might say, well, exactly what does that mean? It figures most handily when it comes time for the percentage, your balance, versus your credit limit. So if you have a $1,000 balance, or let's say you have a $900 balance on a $1,000 credit limit, you're at 90% utilization, correct?
Correct.
If you have a $500 balance on a $1,000 credit limit, you're at 50% utilization. Well, bottom line is 30% of your composite scores are based upon where all of your revolving accounts stand in terms of that percentage of utilization.
So what should we be doing?
Well, I'll give you some examples, some tips later with regards to utilization, but bottom line is the lower the percentage of utilization, the better that 30% is going to look towards your total score. So keep in mind, pay history is 35%, 30% is credit utilization. That's 65% of your composite scores are based upon how you pay and the percentage of your utilization with revolving credit. That's a lot.
That's a lot of
percentage. That is a lot.
My pie is
15% is length of credit history. Granted, that's only time can make that better. 10%, and you can see that the last two, 10% is the type of credit used, whether it's installment, revolving. Installment is a fixed payment for a fixed term, most commonly an automobile loan, a mortgage loan. Revolving, credit card. You make a minimum payment on a $500 balance on a $1,000 credit limit. Consumer finance, typically some sort of consumer finance company type of account, a mortgage, or an automobile.
Question.
Yeah.
Which one's better? Which one of these credit lines would be the best to see on your credit report?
Typically, your score will get weighed down based upon consumer finance. Those kind of riskier types of accounts that we'll take into consideration. There's, I think Lobel Financial is the name of a company that I've seen as of late. They're kind of a high risk, Balboa Thrift and Loan. They're more of a high risk type of auto finance, meaning that they're willing to buy deeper as far as the paper is concerned.
I see.
Last 10% is recent credit searches. So this old adage is true. Inquiries, you inquire for credit. If you inquire often, it is going to weigh your score down. So someone comes in and says, hey, I really don't want to have my credit pulled because I don't want to weigh my score down. Well, depending upon how often my next question is, how often have you applied for credit in the last 90 days? Because they're going to do a 90-day look back. So how many times in the last 90 days? None. Okay. Well, there was a federal law that passed a few years back that if you're applying for a mortgage within a 30-day period, it's not going to affect your score. It shouldn't affect your score.
Right.
Meaning it multiple times. If you're applying multiple times for credit, it's not going to affect your score. It's going to, if you apply 3 times versus 1, it's still the same. It's still going to count the same. So after the break, what we're going to do is we're going to take a little deeper look at just how much your credit may have been affected by the housing run-up and subsequently the market crash, or is it still hurting? And if that's the case, you are not going to want to miss this. You are listening to the Real Estate Radio Network here on News Talk 580 KMJ. All it takes is one call to the professionals at Valleywide Homes, and you'll start building wealth in real estate. Whether you're looking for your first home and moving up, or your next income-producing investment property, let the experts at Valleywide Homes help. There's never been a better time to get into the real estate market. Visit our website at reofresnohomes.com or call toll-free 800-979-3958. That's 800-979-3958. And put the seasoned professionals of Valleywide Homes to work for you.
Thinking about buying a home? Find out how the HUD Home Store can help you. Visit HUDHomestore.com. Look at HUD homes available for sale near you or nationwide. Why HUD Home Store? HUD will pay up to 3% of the buyer's closing cost. The price of the home is based on an FHA as-is appraisal, which is already completed, saving you an average of $400. And there is an owner-occupant priority bidding period during the first 30 days. Want to know more? Visit HUDHomestore.com.
You know, we were talking about just exactly prior to going to the break, just how much folks' credit has been affected over the last 5 or 6 years, affected by the housing run-up. If a home was if buying a home or purchasing a home during that time was something that you did, and now for whatever reason you might be upside down, meaning that you owe more than what the property's worth, or unfortunately a job was lost, or something scary happened. Your world turned upside down, and it has affected your credit, unfortunately, in a real negative way. Let's take a look real quickly at just a couple examples of common causes of derogatories. Loss of job, either you or your spouse. Losing a job, unemployment here in the Central Valley with such an agriculturally based economy, 15+%. It's crazy. The chances that someone that has been affected by losing their job are extremely, extremely high. Loss of income, either you or your spouse. Maybe you were making bonus commission or overtime income, and your business in whatever industry you worked in retracted significantly because everything is so interrelated here in the Valley. Well, now you're not making the extra $800 or $1,000 a month that you were making bonus, overtime, or commission income. Loss of a loved one, unfortunately. And I do have to say this, loss of a loved one, and maybe there was no underlying insurance to protect and replace that income. The next thing I'm going to say here might be a little sore or touchy in terms of...
I don't know, Dad. How hard are you going to be on us?
Well, my dear, I'm going to talk to you about overspending, and I need my credit card back. I told you.
But Dad.
I told you.
I
told you. You needed to you really needed to ratchet that down.
Yeah.
Overspending. Mm-hmm. If there's anyone out there that has a little issue with I like to spend, and I like the whole physiological response that gets me excited. I saw a good friend on Facebook.
Therapy, Greg.
Yes, therapy. Okay. I saw a good friend post on Facebook the other day. Why is it that I always like to go shopping when I have no money?
Isn't that the way it is?
Over borrowing. Just because you have good credit, just because at the time you have the ability to be able to qualify for, at the time 5 years ago, a $300,000 home and a nice brand new BMW. Just because you can doesn't mean that you really do it, or just flat out, and you know who you are, just being irresponsible. Well, wherever you might fit there, even, and let me just say this, not to leave all the great credit score folks out there out of this discussion. We're talking about derogatory credit right at the moment, but those folks that have great credit, there's still things that you can do. You'd be amazed at how many folks that I see that come across my desk and have 680, 695, 676, but they have the potential for score improvement between 30 and 40 points because they're maxed out. What did we say earlier? As far as percentage of utilization is 30% of your score. If you could get your credit score up over 700 easily, just for the simple fact that you need to reduce that balance versus credit limit on those accounts, and we can really show you how to do that, and it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you anything to be able to look at have us look at the credit report for you and give you some really good suggestions. Now, let's talk about specifically, we talked about common causes of derogatories. Let's look specifically at some of the common derogatories that are found on a credit report. We talked earlier, late payments in excess of 30 days late. Keep in mind, if your grace period is 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, I have seen it, and it's been quite some time ago, but if your grace period was 5 days and you didn't make your payment, that Target or whatever creditor would report you as being past due. Anytime you have a past due balance showing in that column on your credit report, it immediately hurts your score, almost as if it were a late. I don't know if they fixed that, but I would say this: pay it before the grace period.
Right.
Exactly. Foreclosures, unfortunately losing a home. Short sales, selling a home for less than what it is owed. Short sale, real quickly, hard to say exactly how it is going to report on your credit report. If you were in excess of 30 days delinquent prior to that mortgage being paid off, it is going to, like we said, payment history is going to make up such a huge part of your composite score, 35% to be exact. If it was delinquent, if you paid it current and it was current up to the point that it was paid off, it really may not actually hurt your scores that much that the lender took a short payoff. Collections, if you stop paying a debt and it goes to collections. If you have an automobile and you're unable to make the payment on the automobile and there's a repossession, the lender then sells the automobile at some sort of auction, and there's usually what we call a deficiency. And that deficiency could even end up being a judgment, which a judgment is where they actually go to court, they sue you, and they get a judgment of public record for the deficiency. A tax lien could be federal, could be state, could be personal property. I don't see it that often, but in Fresno County, if you have a boat and there's a personal property tax, the tax bill that you have to pay, you've got to make sure that you pay that. Otherwise, it could potentially be of public record as well.
Now, if you pay that, because I know I've seen some folks who go pay those, does it automatically come off your credit?
If
they
it
file
is,
something?
That's a really good question. If it is something of public record, like a judgment or a tax lien, what you have to do is you have to get what's called a satisfaction of judgment, and you have to take it to the recorder's office and record it. They will match up the satisfaction with the original judgment to show that it is paid, and then it will then begin to report on your credit report as satisfied.
So when you say satisfaction, are you talking about a receipt? Or is it an actual form?
It's an actual form.
Oh,
It is entitled Satisfaction of Judgment, and it is a form that is recorded down at the county office, down at the county recorder's office, showing that lien or judgment has been satisfied.
Oh, okay.
Derogatory credit because of in other words, let's talk specifically about the housing recovery and really how lower credit scores are thwarting sales overall. Many Americans' credit scores have fallen because of the economic distress in the last few years, and it's probably affecting their ability to get a new mortgage or even buy a house. In a report from Washington, how big a whack did credit scores take during the grim years of the economic distress after the housing bust? Was it 20 points? I wanted to know. Was it 50 points? Was it 100 points? I was going to take a guess that it was pretty substantial. Or was there no drop at all? Well, there are key questions for millions of potential home buyers who hope to qualify for mortgages and current owners looking to potentially refinance. New research from a major credit risk evaluation company suggests that the drop in huge numbers of American scores was dramatic. FICO, or as we discussed earlier, formerly known as Fair Isaac Corp., which developed and markets the scores that dominate the home mortgage field, found that in 2008 to 2009, about 50 million consumers in the country saw their FICO scores plunge more than 20 points. Nearly 21 million of these lost more than 50 points, and many lost 100 points or more because of severe delinquencies. Earlier FICO studies found that the deepest score declines, creating the toughest challenges for obtaining new credit and affordable terms, have been among borrowers who ranked among the credit elite. Homeowners with credit scores in the high 700s may have lost as much as 130 points when they fell 3 months behind or more on loan payments. They might have lost as much as 160 points when they negotiated a short sale with their bank and as a result had unpaid deficiency balances left over.
Wow.
Yeah. Just how bad was it? It's difficult to say based upon this report, depending upon, what happened to you over the last 5 or 6 years. Was it a loss of job? Did you overborrow? Did you overspend? Did you lose a loved one? And really, how much on your credit report, if you had overborrowed maybe at the time, how much of a path of destruction? We use this term, or I use this term in conversation with Michelle quite often. How big a path of destruction did we create? How big a wake behind the boat do we still have? And it's really difficult to say. I don't think, I will say this, we're not done. We're not done with the path of destruction. But I can say this, each and every one of us has a choice, and we have a choice whether we start, first and foremost, determining where are we? Where are we? And that is really simple. It's pulling a 3-bureau credit report, a free credit report on an annual basis.
When you started mentioning the article, I thought, well, maybe FICO had changed the rules or changed the way they gauge things based on economics, but that's not where you went.
No, unfortunately not. That wasn't the whole point. Unfortunately, it was situational, and the scoring models did not change. If anything, they probably got tighter because credit is harder to come by nowadays. It really is. Well, after the break, what we're going to do is we're going to take a real quick break. And how long does negative credit stay on your credit report? Please make sure you come back. There is lots of information that we still want to get you. You are listening to the Real Estate Radio Network here on News Talk 580 KMJ. Mortgage interest rates are at historic lows, and there's never been a more affordable time to buy real estate. Whether you're looking for your first home, moving up, or your next income-producing property, let the mortgage professionals at Valley White help. Valley White Homes has been helping homeowners with their mortgage needs since 1997. When it comes to the Valley's real estate, we know our way around the neighborhood. Call toll-free, 800-979-3958, and put the seasoned professionals at Valley White Homes to work for you. Valley White Homes, NMLS number 342062, 235-952, California Department of Real Estate License 0122-8460.
Thinking about buying a home? Find out how the HUD Home Store can help you. Visit HUDHomestore.com. Look at HUD homes available for sale near you or nationwide. Why HUD Home Store? HUD will pay up to 3% of the buyer's closing cost. The price of the home is based on an FHA as-is appraisal, which is already completed, saving you an average of $400. And there is an owner-occupant priority bidding period during the first 30 days. Want to know more? Visit HUDHomestore.com.
All right, we're back. Well, Michelle, how long? You're probably thinking, oh, this is unfair. This is a loaded question.
I feel like it's a loaded question.
How long do derogatories stay on your credit report? Well, and I know you're all dying to know but have been afraid to ask. Per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it was a federal law that was enacted back in 1970 and has seen some revisions since. Most negative information will stay on your credit report for a minimum of 7 years.
You hear that? Minimum.
This is part
not
of the
maximum.
Minimum. Yes, this is the
maybe longer.
And you know why they use minimum is because if a creditor updates last reported on your credit report,
right, that
just pushes you that far out. And last reported is last time they reported that derogatory to a credit. Let's say it was a 30-day late. It will stay on there for at least 7 years.
Wow.
Charge-offs. A charge-off, again, is you stop paying a bill and it goes to collections. Any collection account. Medical, a bill that you stop paying, Comcast, Sprint, AT&T, whatever it might be. 7 years plus 180 days from the date reported to the credit bureau. Okay? Student loan defaults. I'm just going to say this real quick. If you ever want to qualify for a mortgage, pay your student loans. Don't think that they're going to go away. If it is a government-backed student loan and you default, you will not get a government-insured loan for a very, very long time.
Uncle Sam.
Don't default on student loans. Student loan defaults 7 years. Foreclosures, if you lost a property, any property, okay, 7 years. Bankruptcy, 10 years from the date the bankruptcy is paid. Unpaid tax liens, 15 years. For California residents, it's important to note that a paid or released tax lien will remain on your credit report for 7 years from the date released or 10 years from the date filed. So there's a little bit of an overlap there. Again, 7 years from the date released or 10 years from the date filed. Unpaid tax liens, on the other hand, stay on the credit report for 10 years from the date filed. So here's where it starts to get really difficult. Are you getting anxious?
I'm still on the tax lien.
You're still trying to figure out.
I'm still worrying about Uncle Sam because
right.
I'm not thinking it says, and it just, unpaid tax lien, stay on your credit report for 10 years from the date filed.
Hey,
if they're unpaid, I don't think Uncle Sam's ever letting you go. So don't think that if they're off the credit report, they're
just
gone.
Exactly. And thank you for bringing that up, because anything that's unpaid that drops off the credit report doesn't mean that if you go out and try to purchase a house or sell a house that it's gone. It just means that it doesn't show up on your credit report anymore. It will come up in a title search. When they do a public record search,
right,
it will show up. So thanks for bringing that up.
And one more question, because I know I've seen this on quite a few credit reports. Child support is a judgment.
Child support is, it will show up as an account. The way it shows up now is it shows up as an account, whether it's paid as agreed or not paid as agreed. Thank you for bringing that up.
And does that affect your FICO?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
Okay.
Not paid as agreed affects your FICO like any other account.
All right.
Here's the thing that I think it's extremely important to do, guys. We have to ask ourselves some really difficult questions. And oftentimes, human nature is we don't want to look in the mirror. I regularly don't want to look in the mirror, but that's my own problem. Did we get overextended during the housing run-up, whether it be credit cards, whether it be automobiles, whether it be houses? Did we get overextended? And you have to ask yourself that question. Did we borrow too much? Just because you can qualify doesn't mean that you should borrow. Did we use our homes like ATM machines? Many times, again, a comprehensive plan for ensuring that you don't get over your head, but also that you have the insurance in place to protect yourself in the event that you or your spouse passes is extremely important. So many times, folks are buying, a brand new Navigator with a $700 payment, and have absolutely positively no insurance. And I speak from personal experience over the last few years. I lost both of my parents, which I considered both of them, respected both of them, thought they were very smart folk. Neither of them had any underlying insurance, and that's it was a pet peeve of mine prior to that happening, but just reinforced it with their passing.
Well, I think when people have grown children, they don't think about it the way you do maybe and focus on it when you have little children to raise. So I do think it's important to address that all people, if able to, should put that in place for the people around them.
I think I do honestly think it's a responsibility that we have. Now, some people may say, hey, my credit's trashed. I can't pay the bills that are on there. I've got X number of dollars in collections and this, that, and the other thing. You're talking about insurance. Not relevant. Not relevant. Well, when you get there and you are in that position, it needs to be relevant. Yeah. So where are you now? How much do you owe in consumer debt? Do you owe more than what your home's worth? Here's a tough one. Are you having a hard time making your payments? There's a lot of you out there that may fall under that one, and you don't know whom to turn to. If you don't know where you are, here's where you really need to start. The Fair Credit Reporting Act requires that, and this was one of the revisions that I talked about earlier under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, that each credit reporting company provides you with a free copy of your credit report at least once every 12 months. The 3 credit reporting companies have set up a central website. It is free, folks, and I can't stress this enough. Annualcreditreport.com. Annualcreditreport.com. You can go online to get a free copy of your credit report so you can know exactly what is being reported to your credit reports and begin to address any items that should not be reported to your report or any items that you need to get paid. Collection accounts need to get paid. Bottom line is debt needs to get paid. Be careful because there are many imitators that are out there that want you to think that they are annualcreditreport.com, freecreditreport.com, or there's many imitators that will have you pay a fee. If you go to annualcreditreport.com, it is a centralized website that all the 3 major repositories work in conjunction with, or coalition, or whatever, however you'd like to say that. They work together to provide you with free information so that you know exactly where you're at. Now let's talk about helpful tips. This is really what I want you to take away from what do we need to do in order to fix this. If it is a problem, we need to set up first a comprehensive plan first we need to know where you're at. You need to know where you're at. Secondarily is you need to, for some reason I keep speaking like parts of the words and then I take out the middle of it, and secondarily
S's. Start setting up a...
Yes, exactly. I'm getting tongue-tied today for some reason. It's too early. Set up a comprehensive, so first, get a credit report. Second, set up a comprehensive program to rebuild your credit so you can put yourself back into a position to buy soon. And you'd be amazed how quickly that can be.
And can I say, it's okay to go ask for some advice from somebody who looks at credit reports every day.
Oh, that's where it should start.
Not necessarily your neighbor
No.
or friend.
If your neighbor's a mortgage professional.
Well, sure.
Certainly. Or you can call us at 800-979-3958. Again, 800-979-3958, and we'd be happy to sit down and take a comprehensive look at exactly where you're at. Now, this may sound obvious. Next is start paying your bills on time.
Here we go again.
Really
Being
important.
Responsible.
Yeah, this is Rule 101. If you're having a hard time making your payments on your bills, is there something that needs to change? And again, this could potentially be a sore subject, because if you're suffering from this, do you eat out too much? Financial expert Dave Ramsey. If you do not listen to Dave Ramsey, go online to his website. Dave Ramsey is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. One of the things that he will say is beans and tortillas, tortillas and beans, and which means that sometimes you've got to live a very basic existence in order to get your ship right. Within
your means.
Exactly. Dave says that the only way you need to see the inside of a restaurant is if you work there, because we all know that the cost of food, I take my family out, 6 folks, and my goodness,
there goes your week's salary.
It's a $90 bill depending upon where we're eating. Easily. Do you lack restraint in spending money? In other words, are you just spending will-nil? Are you spending money on things that you don't really need? Needs versus wants. Do you need it, or do you want it?
Right, and I think that's interesting because I don't see in our society anybody asking those two questions.
I tell you
what. Is this a need or a want?
It needs to be, honestly, and it's getting worse. I personally think that it's getting worse, but we really need to, in terms of self-accountability, we need to ask those questions. It is the only way that it can get better. And if you're not willing to ask those questions, you're fooling yourself in this arena of your life as well. I'm sure there's other arenas of your life that you are fooling yourself or potentially others. Are you part of the problem? Let's start with being honest. If you have too much debt, when, and this is a hard one, when is it time to talk with a bankruptcy attorney? We hope in the future to be able to bring in some trusted bankruptcy professionals that will be able to answer those questions for you, so that you can, do you owe more or less than $10,000 in consumer debt?
That's a tough
question. Do you owe more or less than $25,000 in consumer debt? Are you having a hard time making those payments? When is it time? And I'm just going to say this. Don't allow the creditors to force you into a position where it becomes time to file, because at that point they're beginning to levy accounts. They're beginning to make it has to be time in order for you to protect yourself. And that's exactly what bankruptcy does. It protects you under the umbrella of the bankruptcy laws of the United States. So don't overuse accounts. Again, we talked about earlier, percentage of utilization. Keep your balances. I will say this. If you have a revolving line of credit, a credit card, keep the balances below 20% on those cards. Keep them below 20% monthly. Extremely, extremely important. The lower the percentage, so if you, again, using that example earlier, if you have a $1,000 credit limit with a $200 balance, you want to keep that balance on that $1,000 credit card $200 or below. If there's many of you out there that you're at 90% plus, that's part of the problem as far as where you're at as far as credit scores are concerned. And you might say, well, I've got a 700 score. Well, you'd probably have an 800 score if your percentage of utilization wasn't that high. Another thing also, remember, don't ignore those letters in the mail from a creditor. Communicate with them. It's better to pay now if you can. Negotiate a settlement. And as well, get proof that the account is paid. Now, if you're in a position where you've got no credit or you've got no good credit, I'm going to say this, and you don't have much outstanding in terms of collections, you need to reestablish at least 2 revolving accounts. And they're going to be smaller revolving accounts, $200 or $300 credit limit. Here's the name of a couple of creditors that you can utilize: Orchard Bank, Capital One, or any secured online credit or secured credit card. You may have to deposit those monies in an account that helps to offset the credit limit, but bottom line, it helps you to reestablish that doggone credit score. And credit scores are what makes the world go round. Let's really be frank here, guys. Reestablishing credit because you understand that some credit depth will be required in order to qualify for a mortgage loan. You have to make a choice to not get in over your head. Be conservative. If you can't pay cash for it, you don't need it. So don't overborrow.
Amen.
And whether, like we had mentioned earlier, again, whether your credit scores are low or whether your credit scores are 700 plus, and you'd like us to take, and I can't stress this enough, you'd like us to take and give you a full and complete review of exactly where you're at, exactly where your credit report is at, to see if there are things that we could do to help get your scores up. We would be so happy to do so. It's what we do every single day. And remember, if your credit scores have suffered over the past 5 years, 5 or 6 years, or then some, you have to be patient. Recovery absolutely, positively will not happen overnight. I tell folks it will take time. It is homework. And this is the kind of homework that takes sometimes years to right the ship or plug the holes in the boat. But it is, but time is what you have.
I often see people coming in wanting to purchase a home, and they have no clue none at all, what their credit looks like or what's on it, and when they start looking at it. I mean, I think it's really important that we use that once a year, take a look at it. If you're desiring home purchase, let's get you on a road map.
Certainly.
What are the steps I need to do to get there? I think that's really important.
Those clients, I tell you what, it's proof positive. I've got a number of clients that I've been working with for a number of years. The most recent, it took them 18 months to get to where they needed to be in a position to purchase a home. It can happen, and it can happen for you as well. We'd be happy to be able to take a look at it for you. Don't forget, folks, to tune in to the Real Estate Radio Network every week here on News Talk 580 KMJ. Michelle, big thank you. Always love having you here in the
thanks
studio.
for having me.
My trusted sidekick, real estate professional, friend. Appreciate you joining us today. It's always good to share that wisdom and to kind of banter back and forth. Thank you so much. If you have any real estate-related questions or questions regarding the information that we share with you on our show, please don't hesitate to call us, 800-979-3958. Again, 800-979-3958, or check out our resources online. That is reofresnohomes.com, reofresnohomes.com. We would so love to hear from you. Thanks again, folks, and make it a great day.